So that was an absolutely amazing podcast. If you don't know what I'm talking about, go check out Monday's pod with Chris and Chris. Kind of crazy. There's two Chris's out there. I had to double check it myself. We got ourselves Chris Monzon, our wonderful co-host here, and Chris, and I hope I'm not butchering it, Gerardi from Real Bricks.
You got it exactly right.
There we go. A wonderful podcast. One of my favorite interviews you've ever done. Top 3 for sure. Probably top 2. There was the one about the other one that we did about self-storage and real estate that I was just, I'm a little bit biased on because I'm obsessed with that stuff. But we're hoping to have him back on the podcast very soon. But with that being said, let's get into the recap of kind of what Monday's podcast was all about. First off, Chris, how was your week?
My week's been it's been ups and downs as life is, but I'm trying to focus on the positives. I was very happy to on Monday sit down with other Chris. That was honestly my favorite interview I've got to have on the podcast. He and I were able to connect at such like a deeper level on spirituality and questions and stuff like that. I was, after the podcast ended, I was like, dude, can we be friends? And like, now I have his phone number and he has my phone number. I'm like, can we be friends? Can you like mentor me? Like,
yeah, he had such a beautiful outlook on life. So beautiful. If you're going to do anything, go back and watch Monday's podcast. You didn't even need to listen to Friday's podcast. Go back and Monday's podcast because it was just gems on gems. It was a really beautiful conversation. But yeah, let's get into it. So I have a whole list of notes here on some of my favorite things that I learned from that episode, but I want to give you a chance to speak on how you enjoyed it and what were some main key takeaways, and we'll just go from there.
When you're in the conversation, it kind of comes as a blur. When you're doing these interviews, you're really just present and listening. I'm trying not to think about the past, the present, about what questions I have. I just want to be present with him. But the thing that I really took away is, last week for our podcast, we talked about what is enough, and we experienced it, and we like dissected it from a philosophical and a psychological and a spiritual realm of like, what is enough? And, by the end of it, we really didn't have a real answer. It was just kind of, if you believe you have enough, you have enough, and you are enough, and you can be better. We've talked about it, that this concept of enough just keeps on coming up over and over and over again. And I really do believe that has to do with me. And like, it's my goal in 2025 to explore this. So sorry to everyone if you're like not about it, but we're going to do what we're going to do. So like, subscribe either way. But when I brought that up to other Chris, when I said like, Chris, I have this question, like, what is enough? And he's like, he thought about it for a while. And I think he said something to the regards of like, if I was to die today, that would be enough. I have done all that I want, and I don't want that to happen. And when he said that, I was like, whoa, like, I want to get to that point. I want to be there where it's like, I am enough. And I think I even said that at the end, that I want to believe at my core that I am enough. And when him said that, like, if I died today, I would be happy because I know that I am enough. And I was like, so like the great equalizer for all things is death. Like, that's the common, we're all going towards that ravine. And he and I even talked about, like, we don't know what that means. We don't know if you take off the VR helmet, you go into the actual real world. We don't know any of it. We only know what we have. But he was saying, like, even if it is the definitive end, he is enough. He's done everything that he wants to. And that doesn't mean that he wants it to end, because he still has his kids, still has his wife, still has all this stuff. And I was like, that's really, really cool. How do you get there? Like, what do I have to do to continue to be on that journey? Because I don't know if you can ever reach it. I mean, maybe he's reached it and maybe he's going to fall off and go up on top. And I kind of think of getting to that top of that mountaintop is kind of like being on a razor's edge. Mm-hmm. And like, you're constantly just trying to balance. And right now he's on that razor's edge and he's balancing. And he could fall off either direction. And if you fall off, you're not a failure. You just have to get back up on there and start riding again. So that was the biggest thing that I took away. I mean, we talked about so many different things.
So many. It was such a wide variety of topics. One of the things he also mentioned on enoughness that I wrote down in my notes was, enough is the willingness to take action. And I liked that. He also said that enough is a mindset, right? And that's an interesting kind of thought, because oftentimes we think of enough as a destination, not an experience. And for me, when I think of mindset, I think of like, this is the outfit, this is the uniform that I'm wearing, this is the tool belt that I'm wearing, right? I wouldn't go to war dressed for the gym. I wouldn't go to the gym dressed for war, right? And enough is a mindset, he was saying. And I never thought about it like that. Because we were talking about how, how do you find enough? Well, in order to find enough, you probably have to be enough. And to be enough, you have to know yourself. And it's just a rabbit hole of conversation and questions. But to categorize it as a mindset means that it's learnable and it's achievable. And it's a lot closer than we think. Because oftentimes, I know for myself, well, okay, what is enough? Well, I've got to have enough money to buy my family a house, right? I've got to have continuous reoccurring cash flow and income. I've got to build my legacy. I've got to make an impact on the world. I got to change the world for the better, right? Then I'll be enough. It's like, no. That's the goal. That's the destination. That's not when you feel enough. You'll be more efficient to reach those goals if you feel enough. And by saying enough is a mindset, it's kind of like that paradigm shift. It was like wow, like this guy, this is the type of guy who's been in the fire and he's come out the other side and he's telling you that, hey, fire's hot and it'll burn you, but you'll be better off on the other side.
What else did you get from the conversation? Maybe kind of going back more to the beginning. One thing that I did really appreciate about Chris is when we got off of that call, I always debrief with every one of our guests. How'd it go? What did you think? Anything you want me to cut? Blah, blah, blah. And one thing that he said that he really liked about our podcast, because obviously he's been on other people's podcasts. He is the owner of Real Bricks, which is, it's an investment platform. It's a way to invest in fractional ownerships of properties. And he was saying whenever he goes on other people's podcasts, they only want to know about the investment. They only want to know about the money side, the finance side of personal finance. And he said that our podcast was a breath of fresh air because it wasn't about all that stuff. Because I even said, like, all that stuff, is it important? Yeah, it's important. It's 10 to 20% of the goal. But rather than everyone else focusing on that 10 or 20% of getting good with money, I want to focus on the other 80 to 90%. I want to play this game on as easy mode as I possibly can for you, our listeners. I want you to learn all this stuff. I want you to learn 80 or 90% of the way. Because even if you fail at the other 10 or 20%, you will still have a solid B or A. Where the other way around, if you just figure on the money side of things, you only figure on that 10 or 20% of being quote unquote good with money, but you never learn the mindset. You're still going to fail. Like you're getting a failing grade because so much of it is that mindset, that understanding that whether you think you're going to be okay or whether you think you're not going to be okay, you're exactly right.
Some of the other notes that I'm going to touch on aren't really going to be like we talked about just now, right? Hey, this is what you should be investing in. This is that, right? A lot of it was personal development, right? I loved what he was talking about, how suffering can breed success. And as an entrepreneur, sometimes you have to push all of your chips in, right? Like he was saying, when COVID hit, his business was decimated and he knew that he needed to walk away and start something different. And that's tough when you have a wife and kids, right? Pushing all your chips in, betting it all. And what you could kind of tell, I know he didn't talk too much about it, was had a wife that believed in him. And I think that's so important. And I don't think partners get enough credit, right? We see the man up on stage. Oh, he's the founder. He's this, he's that, right? He's the one on the podcast. But we don't see the behind the scenes of what it took for that man to become who he is, right? And I think it's so important that you have that community around you, that house, that loving house that supports you and believes in you. Because oftentimes as an entrepreneur, you don't always believe in yourself. And fear is just corrupted belief. So it's important when those fears come up and the belief gets corrupted, right? That you have people there that patch it up. Who say, no, you know what? Dude, you built this, you did that, you grew that. You can do it. You've done it before. And you're like, well, yeah, actually, I guess I have. I love how his mission was bigger than himself. Always. I think that's where the three of us really connect, right? It's not about oneself. It's bigger than that. He said, don't just serve yourself. Help others and good things will happen. I couldn't agree more. But I don't want people to take that in the wrong direction. Oh, I should help people because good things will happen to me. It's like, no,
Because I'll make more money if I help
Yeah,
you.
because I'll make more money. It's like,
not
no,
the
that's
goal.
not what I'm teaching. That's not what I'm saying. That's not what I'm saying at all. Being a good person is the reward. Doing good is the reward. It's good for the soul. It's good for society. Something you said, though, which I thought was very interesting. I'm giving all the way. I'm giving all the sauce away today. I'm giving my note. I feel like we're right about to go into class and we just had a quiz. And you're like, Tom,
Yeah.
give me your notes. You know, give me all your notes. I'm just giving it all away, man. Um, Something that you said, which I thought was very interesting, and I think our viewers will find it very interesting as well. You said that money isn't the goal. It's just a facilitator to what you actually want. Touching more on the topic of enough, ironically. I connected with that one I deeply connected with that one. Money isn't the goal. It's the facilitator to what you actually want. Recently, I've been looking to go faster. As you know, it's one of my this month's New Year's resolutions, right? New month's resolution. And I've been thinking about how I can move faster, right? And I read this quote from Elon Musk that said, take your 10-year goal and try and get it done in 6 months. You might not get it, but you'll get close, right? You'll get closer than you think. And one of my goals, first thing that popped in my head was a dollar figure, right? Finance show. But to be honest, that was the first thing that popped into my head. But when you said that quote, money is just a facilitator to your goal, I was like, well, this number is out of thin air. Why do I want this number? Well, one, someone that I love said I couldn't get it, right? And they even laughed at me when I said I want to get this number in a month. And two, to get things, right? So it kind of like, oh wow, it threw me back. I don't know if you've seen like Marvel, like Doctor Strange, where he like hits him and it's like, you know, like that. That's what I felt like when I heard that, and I like connected the dots a little bit. I was like, wow, my goal was a number, but that's a trap. That's a trap. And it was beautiful to see that through your teachings and through Chris's teachings, other Chris's teachings, you know, and really put that into play, put that into principle. So that's kind of what I have so far. I have a few more notes, but I'll be honest, my mouth is getting dry and I feel bad taking up all the airtime. So back to you, main Chris.
Yeah. I'm going to go back a little bit to when you were talking about having a partner along for the journey. And I can tell you, as an entrepreneur, as a fellow entrepreneur, that yeah, I struggle with all those anxieties, the fear that I'm not enough, that I'm messing up, that it's such a paradox to be a leader, especially when we have employees, because you have to be 100% focused on the goal. You have to tell them and like have them believe, because you have to believe that I know where we're going and I know how to get there. And this is what we need to do. And that's very dangerous, because if you start to eat your own lunch, you start to believe your own BS and thinking like, yeah, I know what I'm doing, and things go against you. Now it's everyone else's fault. It's such a hard conundrum for a leader to be like, yes, we're going this direction. Everyone follow me. I know exactly where we're going. While in the back of your head, you're like, I hope this doesn't fail. What's coming around the corner? Like everyone's following me. I need to do good. It's paralyzing, I think
Yeah.
is the best word I can think of. It's paralyzing at moments. You know, I've brought it up a few times, but I have my own company and we have marketing things, and I've been really experiencing a lot of issues with my main marketing channel. It's just not working, and I'm not bringing in enough clients like I need to be able to, because we want to move to San Diego. Like now we have a financial
Yeah.
goal outside of just financial independence. We want to move, and when you move to a high cost of living area, my financial independence is now being very much called into question, especially that with having kids. Like we're really stacking it on top of each other, and that's okay. You know, are you going to be okay if someone was to ask me that financially? Yeah, I'm going to be okay. Like even if it's not the okay that I want, even if it's not being able to run my company, do this podcast, not have train jiu-jitsu, do all this stuff, I will still be okay, because I believe that, and no matter what, I'm going to be okay. But there are days where like it's tough, and like I basically just want to crawl into a ball and like sit at my desk and cry. And those are the days that I need that my wife, like I'm so happy to have her to like lean on, for her to just be like, you can make it, even though it seems like the walls are closing in, like you're fine. Like the walls are self-imposed walls that you're putting on yourself. You're putting all these constraints that this has to happen in this time, this blah, 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 blah. And I do that to myself. I also do it for my wife. And like my wife's like I do that because like I want to get my wife back to San Diego so that she'll be able to be happy in San Diego. And also she's like, even if we don't get there in the timeline that you put in your head, I will be okay. And it's like, okay, so like you're not suffering, I'm suffering because I think you're suffering, but it's just a me issue. So yeah, having that partner at home, having that team of people that believe in you and are just like, you are okay. Yes, if we can't figure this out, we might have to change things, and that will be okay. And if that doesn't come to be, I believe that you can make it work, and we'll deal with the next thing when we get there. But don't start dealing with that until you're actually there.
Yeah.
That was the first thing I wanted to talk about. The next thing I wanted to talk about was your second point, which could you remind me of what your second point was? Oh, wait, never mind. Sorry. So about the money being the great facilitator. That was something that took me a very long time to learn. You know, I remember when I was getting started on this journey to financial independence, you know, I learned how to calculate my FI number and I did it. And I said, like, once I get this FI number and I'll get this, I'll be able to be, I just wanted to be at Coast Financial Independence, like have enough money that no matter if I saved any more money, when I got to 65, I would be financially independent. I reached that number and I was like, okay, got the number of the bank account, but I don't feel whole. Like it's not, that wasn't it. Okay, so maybe it wasn't Coast Fi. Maybe I actually needed to be like lean financially independent. So I've set a goal. Worked years. This doesn't happen over days. Like this is years of work to get just to Coast Fi, years of work to get to lean Fi. And I get to lean financial independence. That means that you can live the life that you want, not having to work, but you really got a penny pinch. Like it's lean. There's also barista financial independence where you kind of get like a job, just like a little fun job.
Yeah.
So I got to lean financial independence, and I thought like I'm going to be happy. Nope. No, I won't. So then I did it one more time. I said, once I get to barista financial independence, then I'll finally be happy. A few more years and achieve that. And then that's where this podcast stems from. That's where all of this stems from. Was I finally got there and I thought, oh, I'm going to take a few years off. I'm just going to do this. I'm not even going to have to work. I could do a lean Fi, I could do a barista Fi. Fell into depression. It's not that easy because money was never the goal. Money was the great facilitator to get me to what I wanted. What I wanted was freedom. But the thing that I needed to get before I got to that freedom was being okay with myself to enjoy that freedom. Because the kind of people that can reach financial independence retire early. They're not the kind of person that can just do it for 10, 20 years and then just take the foot off the gas and then sit on a beach for the rest of their life. Like the kind of person that is willing to do that, to go through that fire every single day, to go through that grind, is not the same person that can just turn it off. So that's where this podcast comes in. That's where my company comes in. All of that stuff comes from that core wound of realizing that the money wasn't the goal. The goal was the freedom. And the freedom wasn't even the goal. The freedom was the ability to have the ability to not worry about money, to be able to put what mattered most to me, which is teaching people about financial literacy, teaching people how to do it is what I'm able to do with what I have, so that they can go out into the world and they can protect the people they love, and that we can kind of create these concentric rings like a ripple in a pond that eventually makes a tidal wave of change.
Yeah.
That's my goal in life.
I love that. You know, I want to, 2 points I want to have. I think it's so beautiful watching you talk about how, you know, you want to make your wife happy, you want to be happy and move back to San Diego. I love seeing you light up because I know it's like, oh, wow, Chris has a new goal. He's hungry again. Like he has a clear target, clear time. He's got a smart goal. And he's like, he's re-enlightened. You know, I love seeing that in you. The second point, I heard this, I wouldn't say it was a quote, but I heard this from a billionaire. I thought it was so interesting. He had just exited his company for many multiples, and they were asking him like, yo, like, what are you going to do next? You know, what's the next business? You know, what, you know, he's a great businessman, one world-class businessman worth billions of dollars. And he said, you know, I spent the last 20 years becoming the best businessman I can. I'm going to now spend the next 20 years trying to become the best father that I can be. And you know, it's very difficult to change chapters. It might be one of the most difficult things. It's like a guy who drives a race car all his life getting downgraded into a Buick. They're so used to the pace, grind, bam, bam, bam. But it's a whole nother muscle to drive slow. It's a whole nother muscle to be a great father than it is to be a businessman, you know? But I think it's also scary to make that transition. And one of the things I learned from our guest is, it's okay to be afraid. You're going to be okay. But you have to understand that through the fear comes the knowledge. Wisdom comes from reflection. And don't be so hard on yourself that you end up self-destructing. I have great admiration for someone who can pivot. And our guest is one of those people, right? I would love to hear more about his backstory, about why he lives in where he does in Omaha, and all these things. So I'm excited to get in another conversation, another podcast with him. But you can't be afraid. But that's like saying you can't breathe or you can't see. It's like these things happen, and that's okay. And I think it's important to know that you're going to be okay. But yeah, that was were two or three of the points that I wanted to make on what you were saying.
You brought up a point, like you can't be afraid. There was a war horse, and I can't remember his name, but he was like this brave, very brave war horse, could charge through cavalry, could charge through bombs, all this stuff. And, he was like the bee's knees of war horses. And like everyone wanted to breed this war horse because they knew like this guy can do anything. So eventually, this was back in the day, we got the ability to like do neuroscans of like the fear areas of the brain. And they checked out like what a normal horse is, because if you don't know anything about horses are actually prey animals. So they're the ones who are getting attacked. Horses are big and scary, but they're the ones that get attacked. So they're very skittish animals, like a guinea pig or like a bird. Like they're going to get, not like a hawk, like a pigeon.
Yeah.
So we finally, we as humanity, we hooked up a normal horse. We saw like, okay, this horse, this is what it looks like. It's scared a lot of the time. It's very skittish. Like this is the baseline level of afraidness. And afraid is a biological necessity. It just is. The fear is a choice that you have, right? So everyone thought that we were going to put this horse into the MRI scanner or whatever. We're going to figure out that his baseline is going to be substantially lower. But in truth, his baseline was the same as all other horses. The difference with this horse was that he was somehow able to choose not to be afraid and move forward despite that fear. All the other horses would turn and run away. He was able to be just the same level of fear, exactly the same. But for some reason, this horse had the ability to choose to continue to move forward, even with the same level of fear. And we all have that in us. I have fear every single day. We all do, especially as entrepreneurs. And the thing that separates the successful entrepreneurs from the ones that peter out, I think, is that the successful ones can look at all of these things. Yes, this sucks. The world's against me. All this stuff. It's scary. All that stuff. And say, and I'm going to continue moving forward. I am afraid. The danger is legitimately real. But the fear is a choice. And you can be afraid and you can cower in a corner, or you can be afraid. You can move forward. Same reason if someone breaks into your house with a knife. Why am I going to be afraid? Hell yeah, I'm going to be afraid. Am I just going to hide in my closet? No. I'm going to go for it. I'm going to attack and try to do at least the best that I can.
It goes back to something mothers always say when you're a young boy. It's like, oh, just try your best. And only now am I realizing how important that really is. But make sure you're actually trying your best. Don't half it. Go all the way. If you're going to try, go all the way.
Yeah. And that's something I still struggle with. I think I have a kill switch in my brain that once it gets really hard, it tries to shut it off and just be like, don't try. And I understand it's a protection mechanism.
Yeah.
But that's still difficult to deal with. One thing that I do want to bring up before we move on to Five Friday feedback. When I was talking with Chris, we talked about, and you talked about that CEO who, sold his company for X billions of dollars and decided like, I'm going to be a dad. When I was talking with other Chris about that, we talked about that many men, we think that in order to give our kids the best life, we have to give them all the things we didn't have. Give them the best cars, the best house, the best gifts, the best Christmas, the best birthdays. When in reality, your kids don't want any of that. I mean, of course, they kind of want it, but what they really want is to be seen, to be loved by their dad. And I think the biggest common issue with men is that we don't think that we're enough. So we go out, we seek to get more in order to show our families that we're enough, in order to show society that we're enough, but more importantly than all of those things, to show ourselves that we're. And I don't know how to fix that, because just like that CEO, right? He sold his company for X billions of dollars. He does not need to work anymore. He just doesn't. It's just a truth. And when he made that comment, hey, I'm going to go and be the best dad that I can. I'm going to leave the world of business. I can imagine that every single other man, every TV pundit, every other business person, anyone that's looking out is like, what an idiot. Who's going to make that choice to go be with your family when you could make more money? Because they're putting on their goals, their aspirations onto the other person. And that's always been one of my biggest drives, is to be there with my kids during their most formative ages, 1 to 7, because I didn't have that growing up with my father. So I don't know. I think that people just need to realize that everyone's on their own journey. And if someone's journey, if they want to be a stay-at-home father, if someone's a stay-at-home mom, if someone's a stay-at-home anything, if anyone is anything that is different than you, who are you to judge? Maybe that's the life that they wanted. And I think that that life is an amazing life that is full of immense meaning, because not only are you impacting your own life by staying with your kid, you're impacting your kid's life. And who knows where that kid will go and impact X number, many other kids' lives or people's lives in the future. So I just want to talk on that I think a lot of us as men, we look at the money aspect as the goal. And it's not because the money is the actual goal. It's because we think that it'll make us, it's just, I think, and all women, most women don't fall into the same trap, which is great, and not great. It is what it is.
Yeah. When the world would be such a better place if there was less judgment. But I feel on the flip side, we allow the judgment, because how often are you really being judged by outside people? I think it's more a question and a problem of being self-conscious. I could never do that. I would never want to do that. Because there are people out there that are judgy, right? But if you're Chris and if you're me, people who aren't serving you, we kind of just let them go, right? To harness our inner peace, right? Because our peace is very important to us. But really, the most judgmental one is the one inside, right? And there's this quote from the Bible that I always liked. It says, "Don't judge, or you will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged and measured." And I always like that. Because you never know what someone's going through. Because mental health doesn't show signs. I mean, look at Robin Williams, happy actor, successful, and it ended the way it ended. That's very sad. So I think it's very important to always be kind to people, always be respectful, and try your best to understand, because there's a lot of things that people are going through that we could never understand. So be kind, be forgiving, and I pass the mic back to you, Chris, before I bring it down even more.
No, that's beautifully said. I think it's very important, because we can see somebody's physical ailments, and we might look at somebody in a wheelchair and be like, oh, poor them, like they're in a wheelchair. But somebody who's dealing with anxiety, depression, all those things, I don't want to say as debilitating, but it is also debilitating. And I remember exactly what it's like when I was studying psychology, to be like, wow, like those people are just lazy. Like, just pick yourself up from your bootstraps. Like, just be harder, do better. And it wasn't until I went through it myself to realize, like, the mental, and like even worse than the mental, the physical toll that it takes on you to like be there, to like, oh, I just want to get out. Like, getting out of bed would have been winning. Like, for the day, just getting out of bed and going downstairs and like making yourself food is like a Herculean task. Because when your brain is so stuck in that place, no amount of will can get you out until you can start to disrupt those patterns. And that's really where there's Marcus Aurelius, who said, if you are a soldier storming a wall and you reach out and ask for help to get over that wall, it doesn't make you a failure. It's actually your duty to reach out and ask for help. And I think it's the same thing for all of us. I think as men, especially, we're so afraid to ask for help, because what does that mean about us? It means that we're weak.
Yeah.
But it's the strongest thing you can do, because first off, it shows your humanity, but more importantly, it allows you to keep on going. And that's the real goal. When you're storming the wall as a soldier, if you can't get over the wall and you don't say anything, and you're just, on the other side of the wall while everyone else is over there fighting, you're like, well, they didn't ask for help. And now all of your men are on the other side. They're dying. They're laying down their life for whatever goal they're laying there down. And you were too afraid, you were too prideful to ask for help, to go and help them. So the game of life, the game of financial dependence, the game of all of this is to stay in the game. And sometimes you need to ask for that help. It doesn't make you weak. It actually makes you substantially stronger than the person who can't make it up the wall and is afraid to ask.
Yeah.
And then just has to stay on the other side and just listen to the clangs of fighting. And just be like, well, at least I didn't have to ask, so I guess I'll go home now.
Yeah, right.
Like that's cowardice.
It's cowardice. And I think that's what we're all fighting. We're fighting the feeling of being a coward. We're fighting the feeling of being the odd one out, the one that everyone like looks on negatively. But I think real strength is knowing that everyone can look on you negatively and you're still going to be okay. And you know you're okay.
Because you are enough.
Exactly. This guy.
This guy. It is.
Alrighty. Well, with that being said, do you have any final thoughts on that wonderful podcast from Monday with other Chris?
No, I'd just like to thank other Chris for coming on. That was one of the best conversations I've got to have here on the podcast with one of our guests. And more importantly, he will be coming, or at least we have it scheduled that he will be coming back, which I'm very excited about. And listen closer, we'll kind of reveal what that's going to be about. But Absolutely. It's going to be a really good one.
Beautiful. Well, with that being said, we're going to be moving on to our Five Friday feedback viewer mailbag. As you may or may not know, this is where we read a letter from the community. So let's get right into it. So, what is the path to becoming rich when you're starting from zero? The age-old question. We're all here to know about it. So, howdy, Fi Guys. Howdy. I'm 30 years old, broke. I currently have $90 to my name. No house, no assets, no financial literacy. I'm living paycheck to paycheck in an expensive city where even the cheapest meal feels like luxury. Homelessness has been my reality, and while I've managed to find work, it's low paying, and the financial strain feels relentless. I scroll through social media, dangerous to do. I scroll through social media and see people my age buying homes, starting businesses, and going on vacations that I can't imagine to afford. They talk about investing 401k and building wealth, and it feels like a foreign language to me. The few times I've tried to research these things, I've ended up overwhelmed, feeling like there's some secret manual to life that I never received. What hits the hardest is the comparison. I grew up without the financial cushion that many others seem to have. My parents never left me a cent when I moved out, and no inheritance, not even any advice. I'm not angry at them. That's good. They did the best they could with what they knew. Beautiful. But I am jealous. Yeah. But I am jealous of people whose parents gave them a leg up. Whether that's a trust fund, a down payment for a house, or just a lesson on how to manage money. I can't change the fact. I can't change where I've been, but I want to change where I'm going. Beautiful. I want to be rich. Not just comfortable, not just surviving, but rich. The kind of rich that provides stability, freedom, and maybe the ability to help others someday. I'm going to put a pause real quick right there. Yeah.
You say your thing, because you're probably going to say the same thing.
Yeah, we're probably going to say the same thing, right? Being kind and helping people, oftentimes it's very free, right? You don't have to be rich to help other people, right? You'll be astonished what a little act of kindness would do to a person's soul. Imagine giving a person in the Sahara with no water a bottle of water. It's the same equivalent. So I highly recommend everybody, don't wait till you're rich to help other people. Helping people is a muscle. Start now and continue to flex it as you move up. Because once you get more money, it's only going to amplify more of who you are. Chris?
Yeah, I would say that same thing for saving too. Even if you don't have a lot, starting to get that muscle going is going to be a lot easier, because I think a lot of people say, once I get to this certain goal in terms of money, then I'll be able to save. But if you haven't flexed that muscle at all the entire way, and now you have a big amount of money, it's not going to work. No. The other thing I wanted to talk about, though, is he's just said, like, my goal is to be rich.
Yeah.
And that's unfortunately, it's a very common thing. And I know, because I've been here, I've legitimately been here, for people who grew up without a lot of money, people who don't know financial literacy. Again, and that's where I really want to teach our audience, is that money is not the goal. Money is the facilitator towards the goal, towards the life that you want. Money facilitates all things. That's all that it does. It allows you to translate your time, your energy into what you want, whether that be freedom, whether that be time with your family, whether that be trips, whether that be whatever it is. There's infinite number of things you can use with your money. If you were to go down into South Side of Chicago, some of the worst, places in the world, and some pretty bad areas I've been in too. You ask people, what do you want? Magic genie, grant you any wish you want. You know what majority of people are going to say?
$1 million.
Exactly. The average person's going to say $1 million. And that's a mindset issue.
Yeah.
Because in truth, $1 million is not a lot. But if you're somebody who is just trying to make it day to day, this guy says he's experiencing homelessness currently. He's low cost living. He's financially stressed. $1 million to them would be like the ability to fly. It's just so outside of the wheelhouse. Like, if you had a genie that can grant any wish, any one wish, ask for 1 million more wishes. Like, there's so many different questions. Ask for $1 trillion. Ask for infinite amount of money. But to someone in this mindset, $1 million might as well be infinite amount of money. Might as well be the ability to fly. Might as well be whatever thing you want to know, whatever thing you want. It's so hard to get yourself out of the muck, to see that 10,000 foot view, to realize where you are when you're in this situation. I understand it. And we're probably going to get back to this, but the comparison stuff is going to make it substantially worse. I know we have a bunch more letter to.
So why am I writing this letter? I'll be honest. I'm not even sure where to start. I know nothing about money, like stocks, bonds, and 401ks. Feels like they belong to a different world. I've never had a credit card, let alone a credit score. Interesting. A friend of mine suggested I write this letter. They've seen me struggle, and they know how desperate I am to change my situation. They said, why not reach out to the people who understand money? Maybe someone can help you. And I'll admit I was hesitant. It's not easy to admit you're clueless about something as important as finance. But here I am, swallowing my pride and asking for help. I'm going to pause right there as well. I don't know you. I don't know your first name, your last name. I don't know anything about you. So swallowing your pride is purely personal and mental obstacle to overcome, right? Nobody knows who you are that's listening. So it's not like, he said, my name is Dave Smith on Cherry Street in Alabama, and I currently teach finance, and I have no idea I don't know how to count, right? It's not that. So make sure that you're fighting the right battles in your mind, right? Because there's a lot of battles that you don't have to be fighting that you currently are fighting, like swallowing your pride and asking for help. We just had a whole podcast on this. Not a whole podcast, but we had a brief segment on asking for help, right? Honestly, I don't think there's anything more masculine and manly than asking for help. I'm going to say it out because I'm trying to change the idea and the concept of men asking for help. So many men never ask for help. Asking for help shows that you respect the person you're getting answers from. It shows that I trust you with your knowledge and your experience to guide me in my world. And man to man, guy to guy, I can respect that, right? There's nothing wrong with asking for help. And by you, quote unquote, swallowing your pride, you're giving yourself permission to improve your life and better yourself. And that's what we love to see. We love to see people getting over that fear, getting over that hump, getting over that hill or that wall. We all want success together. I don't want to leave a single person behind. So thank you for reaching out. The big questions. Is it even possible to get rich when starting from zero? Or in my case, $90? Question number 2. What is the best way to build wealth when you don't have a college degree? Number 3. What careers offer high earning potential without needing a diploma? It sounds like a Google or like a ChatGPT thing that they could answer, because I'm not up to date on the current Indeed marketplace, job offerings in your area, There's
a lot of mindset stuff that we need to talk about here. Yeah. So for these questions, from what I'm seeing.
100%. And what does investing really mean? And how do I start? Now that one we could answer. That one we could possibly answer. Okay. I've read threads on subreddit about getting rich, but they all assume that you already have some basic knowledge, or at least more than I do. What I need, oh boy. If you're reading this from where I am, or the path forward for me, please explain it to me like I'm a child. Don't assume that I know the basics because, frankly, I don't. Tell me how to build a foundation when you have nothing. What are the best steps to gaining financial literacy? And how do I start building wealth when starting from absolute zero? From no credit, no score, but I'm craving some more. Interesting. Well, thank you for reaching out. We appreciate that. Lots to unpack there. Better than giving the answers, I believe Chris is about to give you the tools to answer the questions. What do you have for us,
The
Chris?
only answer I will legitimately answer is big question number one.
Yeah.
Is it even possible to get rich when I'm starting with zero, or in my case, $90? To which I will say resounding yes. There are people that come to this country, don't even speak the freaking language. They will pay people lots of money to come across the border to get smuggled into this country with nothing and are able to make it. My grandparents came to this country legally. They didn't speak it. They came legally with no money. My grandfather worked at a shipping yard in Long Beach. My grandmother worked trying to cut hair out of her apartment at the time, or little like place they got. And they did that every single day, and they saved their money, and they kept on working, and they kept on working, until eventually they were able to buy a house. They were able to have 4 amazing kids, one of which is my father. You know, see their kids off to the military, see kids off to college. All of this stuff was possible. And just because it happened 60 years ago or whatever, it doesn't mean it's not possible today. What they didn't have was an endless stream of knowledge at their fingertips. What you have is an endless stream of knowledge at your fingertips. I think that there is what I think is happening. And this, I'm going to tell you from this last line you say. Tell me how to build a financial foundation when I have nothing. What are the first steps to gaining financial literacy? You also put in here, don't assume that you know the basics, because you don't. However, earlier on in your letter, you've said you don't know what the words stocks are, 401k, investing, building wealth. You don't understand what this means. Well, you know the words, so you know that there's something you need to learn about. What I think is happening is I think you're right. I think you don't know this. I think you don't have financial literacy. And I think that when you went onto that subreddit, when you start Googling, when you start getting all of that information, your brain shuts off and says, this isn't for you. This is too hard. Don't even try starting. And then you're giving yourself an out to not even begin. What's the best way to build wealth when you don't have a college degree? Have you tried Googling that? What career offers the highest earning potential when you don't have a diploma? Have you tried looking that up? What is investing? Have you tried Googling the word or ChatGPTing the word, what is investing? Where is a good place to start? Or are you starting out, you hear a word, a something that you don't know what it means, and then you're automatically stopping? That's what I think it means when you say you're reading these subreddits, which Reddit has a lot of good things. Reddit also has a lot of bad things. So pick your poison as to where you're going to go. Please be careful. Make sure you're seeking out good guidance, which thank you for writing in again. But yeah, depending on the subreddits you're going into, some of them are extremely technical. There are some quant ones that I'm a part of that I can't even understand what the hell some of these guys are talking about. I don't think they even understand what they're talking about. They're just saying words or typing words and hoping that no one could call their BS on it. There's an old saying that I've always liked as a financial advisor, and if you can't dazzle them with your brilliance, baffle them with your bullshit.
That's a wild one. That needs to be on a wall.
Yeah, it should be a t-shirt. And I think a lot of people in the finance world try doing that. They try to say, like, you can't understand this. You're not smart enough. You can't do this, blah, 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 blah. You need to hire me, whatever it is. You can do this, but you have to believe that you can, man. Because I think what's happening is you're getting up to your first hard moment. And life is full of hard moments. And the moment you hit that wall, you're thinking, oh, this isn't for me. And then you're immediately backing. So what's the best way to build wealth when you don't have a college degree? There are thousands of trade jobs. There are thousands of work that you can go out and find. I would go ahead and Google it first off. You know, I think there's a lot of people that would be like, well, Chris, people that are homeless often don't have access to phones or something like that, which is fundamentally not true in this case because you're on social media. So you have a phone, you're paying for a phone. You have the ability to go online. You send us an email. And if you're the kind of person that I had to go to the library to even send this email, we'd be in a different situation. But if you're scrolling social media, I doubt you're going to the library to send an email and scroll social media in a library. Only crazy people would do that.
Yeah.
They would go to a library to look at social media, because that's your real brain. You don't want people to see your real brain in public. What's a career that offers high earning potential without needing a diploma? Google it. ChatGPT it. What is investing? The true definition, I'm not positive what the true definition if you look up the Webster Dictionary. But my definition would be to use your money to accumulate assets that you have a reasonable degree of certainty will be worth more in the future.
Spot on.
And then how do you get started? Again, you need to learn that for yourself, because my biggest fear is that I tell you how to do all these things. I tell you how to do it. I tell you how to go. Do you really want me to sit there and tell you which custodian, Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard, Edward Jones, do I have to tell you which one to go to too? Because they all work. They have to tell you to open up a brokerage account versus open up an IRA versus open up this. I don't know your situation, so I can't tell you exactly what to do. And even if I did know your situation, I would ask you the questions and guide you to be able to answer it for yourself, because I'm not always going to be here. But you will always be with you. And if you know where to go to find the information, you can do it. You can do this. You have to believe that you can. Yes, you're starting off in a bad place. It is true that maybe your parents didn't give you advice because they didn't have the advice. It's true that some kids get trust funds and endowments and their parents know about money and all this stuff. I didn't get any of that, and I turned out where I am. And I know many people who didn't get any of that, who started even in a far worse situation than I am, who is more successful than me. Success is not really quantifiable. Success is maybe not the best word for that. Yeah. Who are on a different path than me, who have objectively more money than me. So can you get there? Yes, you can, but you need to take it upon yourself. You know that you don't know knowledge. So start asking the simple question. Swallow your pride. And if you're afraid to swallow your pride and ask questions to a person, asking the internet. There are so many things that I asked ChatGPT for. You know, the other day I felt really silly because I was like, from September of 2024, September 1st, how many is 5 months? Is it February or March? And I couldn't figure it out in my brain for some reason because of the new year. So I went to ChatGPT and I asked from September 1st of 2024, what is exactly 5 months? And it was like, oh, it's February 1st. And I'm like, that's what I thought it was, but I wasn't positive and I was afraid to ask. So we have the world at your fingertips. You can ask AI the dumbest of questions and it will come back to you with an answer that is rooted in kindness, of actually trying to show you what it is. I use ChatGPT, I use Claude, I use all of them all the time to expand my knowledge, to learn, and just to talk to it. Because in truth, I think it's a better counselor than most counselors. I think it's a better friend than most friends. I think it's a better listener than anyone, than most people.
And a better mentor as well.
Mm-hmm. Because you can tell it to be whatever you want it to be. Hey, I need some Jocko Willink. I need some Chris Monson. I need some Dominic. I need David Goggins. I need Tom Cruise. I don't know. I need Will Smith. I need whatever. You are that person, ChatGPT. Respond to me as if you were that person. How do I learn about investing? As Jocko, as Chris, as Dom, whatever. Or just as itself. Whatever answer you have is more than you currently have. And even if you go in the wrong direction, when you're standing alone in the desert and you don't know which way will lead you to water, the worst thing you can do when no one is coming to find you is just stand in the same place. Any direction is better than staying in the same place.
100%. 1,000,000%. Well, I hope that helps, friend. Best of luck to you in building your mindset and building your financial literacy. We wish you the best. With that being said, we're going to be moving on to Win of the Week.
I want to finish off with one thing real quick.
Please, go for it.
So there's a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh that I really like.
Okay.
And it's, most of us only change when the pain of holding on to what we're attached to is greater than the fear of the unknown. And when I think about this young man, he's willing to change. He says he's willing to change, but he's holding on to whatever he's attached to. He's holding on to this, oh, I can't learn this stuff. And until that feeling becomes so painful, so hurting, so whatever, and it's greater than the fear of the unknown, the fear of actually learning, the fear of knowing how to be good with your money. Because all of us, we'd always say like, oh, if I could learn more about money, I would. Then why don't you?
Yeah.
It's because
Right.
you have a fear of the unknown. You don't know what that would mean. Maybe you learn all this stuff and you realize like, I've been messing up for the last 30 years. And that means that I've been an idiot my whole life. That can be true. And do you want it to go for another 30 years or do you want to fix it today?
There you go. With that being said, we're going to be moving on to win of the week. So last week, you went first. This week, I'm going to go first. So my win of the week is my mile times are improving. And that's tough for me because I'm a chunky boy. I'm very thick, as they call it. Big bones, a lot of muscle, a lot of fat. But getting better, getting healthier, and I'm going faster. So I'm happy about that. Chris, what is your win of the week?
So actually, just here in a few days, we're going to be heading out to Nairobi, Kenya for a Africa trip. So with that, we're going to be going to Dubai for a few days. So I actually my wife was able to receive a free upgrade at our Dubai hotel. And she was able to access that because of someone in one of her private Facebook pages basically said like, hey, I have free upgrades that are going to expire. If you email me or you message me, you DM me your contact or your information and I'll apply my upgrades. So she was able to find that at the right time. She sent it. The girl sent back saying like, I did it for you. And then we got an email saying you've been upgraded. So that's really cool.
Nice.
So thank you, person on Facebook that hooked us up.
Nice. Big shout
It's
out.
always
To
good to ask.
It is always good to ask. Well, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Well, I hope you travel safe then.
Me too.
With that being said, hope you guys enjoyed today's podcast. If you did enjoy any part of it, please like, share, and comment. And feel free to give us up to a 5-star review on the podcast platform of your choice. Make sure to share the podcast with a friend because let's be honest, going on this financial journey is so much more fun when you're going with someone that you admire and someone that you enjoy talking to. So with that being said, we hope you have an amazing week. We are the Fi Guys, and we'll see you in the next one.
Later.
Peace.
This video podcast is sponsored by Monzon Wealth. The content in this podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be considered financial advice. We do not endorse specific products or services. Past performance does not guarantee future results. The opinions expressed are those of the host and guests, not the podcast sponsor. It is crucial to consult with a qualified financial advisor or professional who can provide advice tailored to your specific needs before making any financial decisions, investments, or taking any other actions. If you are seeking specified help, you can reach out to Chris at monzonwealth.com.